Dictionary nerds were lost for words after Scrabble changed its rules to allow proper nouns such as Andrew, Diane, and Michael. There's nothing sacred from the curse of reinvention. At election time, is it possible or advisable for politicians to remodel themselves? The pictures of Gordon Brown auditioning for High School Musical ring true, especially when we already know he's the class bully. Can a leopard really change its spots?
You know what some people call us? The nasty party.
Can the Tories become cuddly Conservatives without risking electoral credibility? When Shadow Home sec Chris Grayling was recorded being distinctly gay unfriendly, maybe he let the mask slip. Just a little.
I took the view that if it's a question of somebody who's doing a B&B in their own home, that individual should have the right to decide who doesn't come into their own home.
Credibility is key. Nick Clegg boasted he'd bedded no more than 30 young ladies. But do we really think of Lib Dems as love gods rather than muesli munchers? Tony Blair had more luck. He's now a perma-tanned multimillionaire with an American drawl.
It's a wonderful pleasure to be back here at Trimton Labour Club in the Sedgefield constituency.
Maybe he knew that Blake Carrington was about to pop his clogs and create a vacancy. It all comes down to whether we buy into it. Can a serial philanderer give up his wicked fairways? Never mind a leopard. Can a tiger really change his stripes?
It's about how you live your life. And I hadn't done that the right way for a while, and I needed to change that.
And we're joined now by a good old friend of the programme, Julian Fellows. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for staying up so late to be with us.
I know.
At this strange hour in the evening. Now look, take this Scrabble reinvention where you can use proper nouns. Surely some inventions are a reinvention too far.
Well, I mean, I think it's very difficult. With any political party, like any showbiz career or anything else, there is a level of reinvention and rebranding that has to go on to keep it new. And you always have this kind of debate with yourself. You know you will lose some old supporters and some core supporters, and you mind about them. But you also know that you're going into the future instead of the past, that you're broadening its appeal and so on. And I think with politics, that just is essential. And that is what David Cameron and his team have successfully done. I mean, they have completely reinvented themselves.
As Mr. Blair reinvented Labour?
As Mr. Blair, the master of reinvention. I mean, you think of that dingy old sort of donkey jacket Labour before, and suddenly it was millionaires and film stars and ha 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 ha.
Diane liked the donkey jackets, I have to tell you.
Well, I
like the millionaires.
But I think the problem, the real problem for Gordon Brown was that he wanted to, but he couldn't endorse that change.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, show business is famous for its reinventions. Sure. I mean, Madonna is a classic example. Is it more difficult for politicians to do it?
Well, I think it's more difficult because you're less in control. You're also permanently on display. You have to, I mean, Madonna may retreat to her sort of, high wall and be safe for a bit. That's not possible for politicians. But I think the real difficulty is whether you can persuade the people you believe it. And poor Mr. Brown with his Arctic monkeys, and they push him into running shorts, they make him smile, both of which obviously make him very uncomfortable.
Well,
this isn't who he is.
The
smile. He shares with the Pope the unique distinction of being uncomfortable when smiling. This is very hard for him.
Well, I can't let this conversation continue without acknowledging the fact that we have one of the most successful political reinventions of modern British politics. I speak, of course, of Diane Abbott. Michael Portillo.
How did you do it?
Well, I left politics. I mean, changing job makes it a great deal easier. But the other thing that makes...
but you were taking us on your journey, to use the lingo, before you actually exited the House of Commons.
True.
You ran as the first Cameron.
The re-entry to the House of Commons was part of that.
You were a premature Cameron.
As part of my reinvention, I hate talking about myself. So what I was going to say is that
we love you talking about it.
But you will.
But the passage of time is a very important thing. I mean, take people like Tony Benn. I mean, Tony Benn is completely reinvented, but not because he's changed a single jot about himself, but simply because of the passage of time. He's become one of the nation's great
stars. Because he can't do any damage.
Well, politics, like life, is a war of attrition. There is a moment when if you're simply still standing, everyone loves you. and he's achieved that. I mean, I think he deserves it, actually.
Actually, Roy Jenkins is quite an interesting case, isn't he? Because, Roy was, he was an elitist. As a Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer, he was an elitist. Suddenly, he re-emerges, winning the Glasgow Hill Head by-election.
As a street fighter.
You know something? Yeah. I don't want to talk about the Glasgow Hill by-election or Roy Jenkins.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about Michael Portillo.
Here.
And how did you go around reinventing yourself? Give us a few guidelines, given the success that you've had.
You changed your hairstyle.
I changed that. I changed that years ago. Well, first, get yourself a television show as a presenter.
So, do I get some of the credit?
No, it is much easier. You see, when I go out to reinvent myself, I don't get interviewed by people like you. I stand in front of the camera, and I say what I want to say, and then if I don't get it right, I do it again. You see, so that's
Did it help doing that
much
thing?
easier.
Did it help doing that thing where you looked after a single-parent mother's family and wore a hairnet? Was that an important point?
Did I wear a hairnet?
You did wear a hairnet.
You must remember whether you wore a hairnet or not.
I know, that's like forgetting the quotes that are against you, isn't it?
There are unsuccessful reinventions, I suppose, as well.
There are, and you can take a reinvention too far. The problem with respect, Cameron's reinvention of the Tory party, it's not whether he persuades the public, it's whether he has persuaded his party. And you can talk to Tory MPs who will tell you that actually the majority of them have not bought into the Cameron agenda.
That was always true of Tony Blair too.
No, but Tony Blair had a huge majority. He had a huge majority to keep his party under control.
But they like winning 3 elections.
He can't stop reinventing himself, can he? It's quite extraordinary.
That's an amazing accent.
That strange mid-American sort of Dean Martin crude.
Have you thought of reinventing yourself, Charles, since being leader of the Lib Dems?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's much easier in politics being an ex-leader. There's more of a degree of affection, in a way, if I can use a stronger term as that, or tolerance maybe might be better.
Used very loosely in this case.
Yeah, poor Charles, in a way, had to go the opposite direction. He went from being a television star and comedian to having to be a serious politician, and that's a much more difficult. No, he was, but he became a party leader.
Bitchy.
So he could. But I mean,
constrained you are. But I mean, I think, I know you can't. You're not comparing like with like, but I think if you take somebody like Neil Kinnock, I think in a way the Labour Party or the gurus that were running it made a mistake, because the public said, that isn't the real Neil Kinnock, and the positive aspects of that personality were suppressed.
All right,
but
I'm afraid
I must just pick up very quickly to say that I think what Michael was saying earlier is right. That's why they keep coming back to David, and why he is so important, is because he is a believer, and you believe that. Whereas with some of the reinventions, you just don't believe it.
Julian, stick with us, because they will need help.
No, not a quiz.
We like a challenge on This Week. Why else would we book Itchy and Scratchy every week?